trying to get myself set up, and I was looking up something online based off of Star Wars. So I didn't say anything because I don't want to interrupt the conversation. But I've been here.
All right, so we're live. Welcome to Comics Aficionados. I'm your host, Wes. I have a great panel with me today. We've got Comics Perch. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. We got Corbin Ford. What's going on, buddy?
Ain't nothing much. Happy to be on. Doing just fine this Saturday morning.
And straight from the theaters, watching Star Wars, we've got the real comic book gamer, Dylan. What's up, buddy?
Not much, man. Going pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for showing up. And finally, last but not least, Pele. Are you still salty over The Rise of Skywalker?
No, I didn't have to pay for it. So it was free. So what the hell?
Well, as long as it was free, you didn't have to pay for it. So this is the DC Comics year in review. We're going to hit all the major hitters, the three big voices for DC this year: Tom King, Brian Bendis, Scott Snyder. We're also going to talk about Doomsday Clock and some DC Black Label. First, let's talk about Batman. It just wrapped up this week. City of Bane's over. Tom King's run is complete. Batman was pretty interesting this year. Sales were down in between 30 and 40% from issue 50 when the wedding happened. And they kind of leveled out for City of Bane, but the critical response kept going down and down and down. They decided to cut King's run 20 issues short from 105 down to 85. Corbin, what are your thoughts of Batman in 2019?
It's been a long, painful, confusing journey. I think that's the best way to describe it from my vantage point. You've done some great videos on this, Wes. I know, Perch, you guys have been all over this, but as just the pure reader who's definitely looking at this from a purely subjective fanboy type, I've been irritated, annoyed. I think around issue 82 of this run, it finally dawned on me that Tom King really hadn't planned an ending. And I think that was a horrifying thing to come to realization. Oh, wait a second. He doesn't know how he's going to end this. And so it was almost on a roller coaster. And then realizing that, oh, yeah, by the way, he hasn't fixed the tracks. And that was shocking. And I think at that point, I just resigned myself to be disappointed. And he fulfilled those expectations at least. I will give him that. It was, I don't know. I think much has been talked about his lack of direction and his weird ability or his perception of having an ability to retcon things that he had overlooked originally to try to slap it together to make sense in later issues without actually having addressed that, making characters who really didn't have a say in the storyline as far as importance, making them important because, hey, I'm Tom King and I write Batman. That really seemed to be the only logic for a lot of decisions that was made in this writing. Beside the questionable use of poetry, the just total marginalization at times of Batman, really making Catwoman the center of the Batman title at times, almost to just an obnoxious degree. The setting aside of Bane on a storyline titled City of Bane, Thomas Wayne being such an integral part of the storyline and then being nothing because we have Catwoman and bam. You can go on, and this is just from the last, I want to say 10 issues, and not even going deeper into just the mess that it was. But this past year, I'm just so happy he's off, and I feel bad because, like I said, I'm a big fan of Tom King from Vision, but I think what he's done in this Batman title has single-handedly just ruined everything for me as far as how I look at him, and I think that's just in line with Batman. This is the signature title of DC, is the best-selling title. I shouldn't be running to Detective Comics to get my Batman fix, and I find myself doing that more often than not this year.
All right, does anyone else have something to say about Batman?
So I've read 2 issues total of City of Bane, one early on and then 85.
Lucky.
And that was all I read. So I don't have a whole lot to say other than, like he was saying, for a storyline called City of Bane, it has surprising lack of Bane. And to pick it up and still see that Tom King's doing that terrible dialogue, the part where Bane breaks Thomas Wayne, he's like, "Batman, are you ready to be broken? Batman, I am going to break you, Batman. Batman." It's just so awful. And then the ruining, my biggest pet peeve from what I read, because again I didn't read a lot of it, was the ruining of Thomas Wayne, Flashpoint Thomas Wayne, because that's a great moment at the end of Flashpoint when Batman gets that note from his father, even though it's his father on another universe, and he starts tearing up. That moment is completely ruined now because it turns out that guy's a complete asshole. And also the whole storyline seems like just a waste because, oh, wow, we didn't need this storyline to tell us that Batman can be happy and be Batman at the same time. We knew that already. We've had so many storylines telling us that. We didn't need this. And Thomas Wayne doing this, like, it just doesn't add up with his character that we saw in Flashpoint now. The same guy that helped Barry Allen throughout Flashpoint, it's not that guy. It's not even the same guy from The Button. He seems way different. It's like, it's just... That's my 2 cents on what I read.
It's not the same guy that's appearing over Detective Comics, for that matter. I mean, but if different writers have different styles, I get that. I agree with both of you. I think Tom King does bring a lot at different times, but this was a very confusing year, very confusing last 2 years. The wedding really turned off people in a major way, and just that bait and switch. And it was completely of DC's own making. And even so, less than Tom King, DC's marketing team got fully behind. Have wedding parties, do this, do that. That's their marketing department. That has nothing to even do with Tom King. In that regard, he was dealt a bad hand. But then this last year of a very odd storyline, I agree. I don't think he knew quite how to end it, and he definitely didn't know how to quite end it with 20 less issues in the mix. So that set everything up for failure. And unfortunately, I could see little bits of good in there of what he was trying to kind of go to, but it's a blended mess.
So, Perch, I know you talked to some people, and they did make some changes to his story, correct?
Yeah, there were some. I mean, there were definitely changes made to kind of, first of all, shorten. I mean, there's certain issues in that City of Bane, we've talked about it before, were clearly just hacked together, where, you know, we're taking something that likely would have been 3 or 4 issues and throwing in 4 or 5 pages, and there's definitely that going on. But there was some editorial, I think, moving things around. They did also want his story to conclude prior to the Dark Crisis, the thing in the summer. So there was then, which I think we're going to talk about later, but there's definitely some trying to get the pieces in the right place in order to have this happen, and get him set up for his movie work and also the other stuff he's got going on.
So Paley, you know, what did you think about the weird, you know, retconning of Thomas Wayne and Selina Kyle, you know, on in his previous universe, you know, basically having kind of a father-daughter relationship where she's calling him dad, and now Bruce is gonna marry his sister, kind of, sort of, maybe.
Yeah, there's definitely some relationship issues that King's had in the past.
Wow.
I don't know where some of that comes from. I can say though that it definitely adds a little bit of a ick factor, I think is the right term for that, to it. But you know, I just pretty much chalk it up to the same kind of neuroses that he's had for everything else in his Batman series. It's I don't think I've ever looked forward to a comic book writer's tenure to be done than I have with this one. It's like, you know, I have customers who've told me that they're just counting the days until he was history. So, you know, and it's been, I think what cemented it for me though, as far as giving him, what put me over as far as making him worse for DC than Bendis was the whole Captain Atom fiasco. You know, and because I'm a fan of Captain Atom, I like Captain Atom. You know, he's you know, kind of on par with Superman. He has a really rich history in the DC continuity. He's you know, I enjoyed his series that he's had, the little mini series, and you know, whenever I saw him in, you know, something, you know, he always added something to it, and he was a character that when he came out, he was ahead of his time. You know, he's one of those particular characters that, you know, didn't fit in as well when he came out, but you could tell, you know, on down the line, you know, he really filled out well as a character. But the whole crap where you know, Gotham Girl just, you know, KOs him, throws him out of the city, you know, and then leaves him in shock to the point where he quits being a superhero. You know, no.
Yeah.
No,
No.
it's bad.
So-
It's bad writing. It's bad. It's just
So the good thing about being a Batman fan is at least there's a little bit of variety. I see, Josh, you've got your Detective Comics right there. Detective Comics with Peter J. Tomasi's been pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well
That's the
stated.
Batman title.
can you expand on that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I assume we're going to talk about Doomsday Clock, the finale. At
Oh
some
yeah,
point during this
it's
show.
all timed out and ordered up.
All right, good. Because reading Doomsday Clock, I read all 12 issues of it within 2 days, so I'm all caught up. But Detective Comics, that feels like the Batman that was in Doomsday Clock to me. I haven't read all of Tomasi's run. I kind of stopped after the Arkham Knight stuff because of school and time and stuff. But yeah, this is the run you want to be in if you're interested in actually reading the real Batman, not Tom King's pretentious dribble. Oh God, you guys have said just about everything that needed to be said about Tom King's Batman, but the Detective Comics, just the art that's on it. Doug Mahnke at the start. And then you have Brad Walker, and now I think Golem March is going to be on it or something. Like, it's just like it's the better Batman title. And for me, the problem with it though is that it runs into DC's issues with continuity again.
Absolutely.
Like, you have everything going on in the regular Batman title, which like is the one that unfortunately most people read, compared to Detective, and it's like
Not
the two
anymore.
I mean, are the numbers for Batman higher than Detective though? Like, I think they're still higher.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
No,
Yeah.
Batman's
But
still
that's
higher,
not saying much.
yeah.
But
I mean,
Yeah.
Batman on Earth and those kinds of issues do better, but Batman sells better in Detective for sure.
But I mean, like, there's no like correlation between the two. It's two totally different characterizations of Batman. It's like one's taking place in a completely different universe than the other. Like in Detective Comics, like I remember, I think it was back in Brian Edward Hill's short time on the comic. It was like right after the wedding, and like Alfred said something to Bruce about, "Are you okay?" And Bruce is like, "No, I'm not okay, but I'm gonna solve my problem by putting on my mask and going out and solving crimes because that's what I do." Like, that's Batman. He got it right. That's Batman. Batman doesn't cry and sulk in the Batcave and get up to walk upstairs when he knows Bane is in Wayne Manor. Like, that's not him. Batman puts on his mask and goes out and kicks people's asses when he doesn't feel okay. Like, oh God, the whole Tom King thing is just such a freaking
the only thing that
disaster.
King's Batman was missing was the pink pussy hat.
Yeah.
And that's really all that needs to be said. It's just, he was ready for the feminist parade. He'd already destroyed his toxic masculinity, and he was ready to go out and fight for social justice.
God.
I think it was. I just think it's like a creator who just honestly didn't understand the true nature of the character who's writing.
Agreed.
Like a fundamental misunderstanding. There was parts that was like, oh, okay, cool. I liked I Am Gotham. I liked the beginning early run. And then there was parts that was like, and then the wedding came and it was all downhill. And maybe it was a mix of just, like you're saying, like not completely understanding it, but also incorporating too much of your own identity. And kind of making vehicles of characters that represent yourself. I mean, even in this Batman 85, there was this backup QB scene between Bruce and Kite Man, which I guess was like something to set for King. It was weird, but he just put too much of himself into it, and it changed from like a Batman book to more of like a Tom King-esque Batman book. It was just weird, and I think that comes down to just not truly getting the character and putting too much of your own stamp on it into a way that's almost detrimental. Well, not almost. It was detrimental.
Yeah. So, Perch, what do you think about, like, I don't think Tom King can take criticism. And when the reception to his Batman issue wasn't positive, I think he tried to double down and triple down and say, I'm going to show you that this is good stuff. And I think that's what really snowballed a lot of his issues. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if it's that he can't take criticism. I think it's more because if people have met him at cons and if you've talked to him, I mean, he accepts it with grace, unlike let's say 90% of others.
I don't know about that. I had an experience with him that wasn't accepting it in grace.
Fair enough. Well, we should get into that. I'd love to, but I guess to your original question, I think it's less that it's that he's against fan criticism. It's more that he definitely believed he had an arc that was going to go somewhere and land. He believed it in his heart and his soul, and I think he lost track of that destination at some point. And I think it also he didn't. And I'll go another direction too. I think he maybe is used to smaller form 12 to 24 issue type runs. And I think he's good at that. Some people didn't like Mr. Miracle. That's fine, but it was a consistent kind of thing he was putting out. Whereas Batman seemed to lose the plot somewhere around the wedding and just never found its way home. And I think he believed he would land that ending, and I think he probably just got in too deep. But I'm curious to hear your experience, because I've heard decent things about how he's taken criticism. So I'm curious to hear yours.
I don't know if it was just one, like if it was he was having a bad day or something, but it was right after the War of Jokes and Riddles wrapped up, and me and a buddy waited in line about a half hour for him to sign comics for us. And my buddy actually handed the comics to him, and he said, "I thought the run was good, but you didn't stick the landing. I thought the ending was pretty bad." And Tom King looked at him and said, "Yeah, well, you assholes keep buying the books, so I'm just going to keep writing what I am because they're selling."
Wow.
And after he did that, that was kind of when my respect went down, and then the run kind of started going down after that. And I was like, geez, this isn't great.
Yeah, that's a completely unacceptable thing to say at a con. I mean, and granted, I would say, having been there and been with some of these people and talked to them afterward, it is an exhausting, grueling moment, and people come up and say the craziest things to you. If you've ever watched, Peter David still get harassed over the stupid Romani thing, like what is this, 6 years later at every con, that would frame my nerves too, and but this is a job for tough people who can weather that. That's not an acceptable thing to say.
Yeah, you need to
I would have lost my access to the con after that, because I would have told him exactly what he could do with himself, and that would have involved inserting his head into his anus repeatedly. So yeah, that's just you've got to, as a creator, you have to have the ability to step outside of your ego to listen to criticism.
Well, I think if you're having
even as a shop owner, I have to do that because I don't do everything right, and I get criticism all the time. It's part of the job. But I don't tell a customer that well, you assholes just keep coming and buying comics every week, so I'm just going to keep selling them.
At the time, we kind of just laughed it off, but it was like there's a little bit of sarcasm in it, but I mean that was the general response we got, and it's like, how are you gonna do that? Like we're two guys standing here, we just had you sign, like we both had the whole run, which was like 8 issues, and that's 16 books of yours we just bought and had you sign, and we paid money to have you sign them too, and you're gonna give us that kind of answer? Like no, like
no, not acceptable.
Not acceptable at all. That was like the beginning of the end of him for me.
You got to be able to. I think one thing that the fans, and I've lots of videos on this topic, they put out there that you should always accept criticism politely and say yes, thank you. You don't have to do that. That's too far into it. You can't be an asshole about it. You just, if somebody says something that you really don't like, it's just tweaking you in the wrong way, you just got to learn to shrug and let it go. You don't have to dive into it. You don't have to say, I disagree, but I welcome your opinion, fan. You don't have to turn into that, but you just have to not kind of lash out at people. And I think it's, I'm sympathetic. It's hard, but that's way over the line.
But I will agree with your friend. He did not stick the landing on that book. Everyone talks about, the War of Jokes and Riddles. That ending is buttholes.
The whole book was whole book was mediocre. The only good part of it was Kite Man. That was it.
It made Bruce Wayne look like an utter moron who helps out criminals because he's a dope. And then in the end, he was played for a fool so Riddler could play a joke on Joker and make him smile again.
Yeah.
In hindsight, though, that ending and how it went down and where it kind of fell apart toward the last third was reflective of what we were about to get for other things.
That's very true.
It was
the War of the Jokes and Riddles had a premise there, and then it had a moment. I'm forgetting kind of what was toward the middle, and it was very analogous to The Wedding, where it's like, whoa, we're off the rails, and where are we going? Oh, we're going nowhere, and it's over. And Tom King is a very hard worker. I think there's a lot of pieces in there that are positive. It's just, and I can't. By the way, I will definitely argue to the depth of Bendis is worse, but we'll get into that later.
I thought that when we did our Tom King versus Bendis debate, but I've thought a lot about it the past couple of days. I think Tom King is so much worse than Bendis now.
I just reread most of Bendis' Superman run, and I can definitely say Bendis is so much worse.
Oh, wow.
So much worse.
All right.
He's doing way more damage. In February, he is writing or in direct control of, through Wonder Comics, 14% of all new DC comics. You know how many Tom King's writing? 0.
Wow.
Yeah.
14%.
I feel like
oh my god,
Tynion will be able to fix so many things that King did, to where someone that comes on after Bendis, it's going to take him a while to reverse some things, to where, like, as soon as Tynion comes on, he can just be like, yep, this, and that. And it'll be like, oh, he's Batman again. To where Superman, it's going to take some time.
Yeah, but I don't want to digress into this, but I think the difference between the two of them for me is intent. Like, you can have a writer take over right where Bendis is right now, and they can turn it into good stories without changing anything. They can keep John aged up, and they can kind of put the marriage with Lois and Clark back together, but it's something that, like, Tomasi or Jurgens could work with and make it good. Batman, you have to fix a lot of things that Tom King did intentionally, like killing Alfred and stuff like that. A lot of it falls to what's malice and what's not malice for me, and I don't think Bendis has malice. Tom King
Bendis
to me
does.
has malice.
Bendis came in and completely destroyed everything that was done in Rebirth. Completely ignored everything.
That's true.
Also, read the Oz Effect and then read his Man of Steel and Superman run. He has no clue what Jor-El just did or what just happened. None at all. Jor-El was a crazy person. I'm sorry, Wes, for taking off.
Well, that's fine. It's the next topic is Bendis and Superman. I just need the cue for when I do it later.
Okay.
Do the post-processing. Let's talk about
Bendis
and basically taking over DC Comics, specifically Superman.
So in the Oz Effect, Jor-El comes in, and we don't know who he is at first. He's just Mr. Oz, and then it gets revealed that it's him. He's basically this sort of cult leader that is like just causing chaos everywhere. Like, people are shooting up places, like craziness is happening. And then he confronts Superman, and he's like, "Oh wow, you're Jor-El. How'd you survive?" And he's like, "I don't know. Some blue thing went and took me out of like Krypton's explosion the second it happened. Obviously, that's Dr. Manhattan. He ends up getting kryptonite chunks in his head, and instead of landing in a nice Kansas field, he lands in some third world country under a dictator where a family is hiding him, and they like shelter him and feed him and nurse him back to health. And then one part of the family goes and rats him out to this dictator. So the dictator comes, is like, "Good job, boy. Now kill your family." And he makes the boy like shoot up his entire family right in front of Jor-El. And then after that, Jor-El kills all those people, which he said he like couldn't control it. Just this rage happened and his heat vision went everywhere. And then he gets teleported to this thing where he's like strapped down and he's seeing all of, like, the humans' worst atrocities, like the Nazis, all the world wars, the like everything bad that humans has done. So he has this warped perception of Earth, of how humans operate, and sees them as corrupted, and you'll never be able to change them, and there's no hope. And so that's what he's telling Clark, and he's telling Clark that humans aren't good. Get off this planet. I was wrong for sending you here. And then in the end, Superman destroys his staff that he was holding. And because that staff was somewhat controlling him, and Jor-El suddenly comes to him and is like, "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I don't know what's going on." And he gets teleported. So Dr. Manhattan takes it back. Then he shows up in Man of Steel out of nowhere, and he's just back. How did he escape Dr. Manhattan? Bendis never read the Oz Effect. He has no clue about any of that. And
all I have to say is spoilers. I just started reading the Oz Effect. Now I don't need to.
Oh, sorry.
No, read it. It's really good.
It is really good.
Yeah, read it anyway. It's really good.
Highly recommended. It's man. It's good. It's good
and Victor Bard animates art is great. But yeah, so sorry about that. he appears out of nowhere, and John is like, I want to go with my dad on the space adventure, and Clark and Lois are like, no, don't go. He's like, but I want to go, and they're like, oh well, we can't stop him. It's like, he's 11 years old. Your whole job is to stop him if he does something stupid. You're his parents. You got to make that decision for him. But Lois is like, oh well, and then Lois' whole reasoning for going, besides we can't stop him, she wants to write a book about it. She wants to write a book about it, and then the same thing happens. So they go into space. This is all like fresh in my head. I just reread this. So they go into space. Lois retreats after they're there for like a day because she's like, oh, when he was there, John just opened up. He was so much better. You know, it's like he hit puberty. It was like great. And he clearly didn't meet me with a psycho grandfather that was just trying to convince you to leave Earth and humans are bad. So, you know, we can trust him. So Lois comes back to Earth, hides there for like a couple weeks without telling Clark that she's back so she can write a book. John comes back and he's like 6 years older than he was when he left. When he comes back, one of the first things Lois says to him is, give me the headline. Her son that she hasn't seen in weeks, that is now 6 years older than when he left, she says, give me the headline. He like, reading this, it's hard to say that Bendis doesn't hate these characters. He makes Lois...
Well, plus, I think of Bendis more as just being incompetent.
No, but he put Jonathan.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically being tortured for 7 years by two people that look exactly like his mother and father. That's insanity.
Yeah, and then there's that part right after he gets saved by Jor-El from when he's in Earth 3 and the Justice Society's doing stuff to him. Because there's that part where he's trapped in a volcano and Ultraman visits him every day to torture him and like confess things to him about his universe. And then he escapes and Jor-El saves him, and then Jor-El has like a mental breakdown, tells him he doesn't know like how the world works, and John tells him the same thing, and then John leaves. It's just so weird. But the way Bendis writes Lois is one of like the worst things about the book. She's just this person that doesn't care about, like, so selfish, doesn't care about anyone but getting the headline. She even so like I said, she was on Earth, she was hiding from Clark. Clark didn't know she was back until Cat Grant basically told him, because Cat Grant is like, hey, I read Lois's book, it's great. He's like, what? And Cat's like, yeah, she finished her book. Oh, you didn't know? I'm sorry. Because at this point, everyone assumed that Lois had left Clark because she quit the Daily Planet, took their kid, hadn't been seen for weeks. And so then he goes and visits her. And when he visits her, she's like, oh, I'm sorry. We're not a normal relationship because we're not normal people. So we don't owe each other anything.
Yeah.
That's what she tells him.
Wow. And this is in all respect. I mean, yes, Tom King, I think his take on Batman, strange and bad. And does he get the character? No, but Bendis thoroughly doesn't get these characters.
Yeah,
to the same level, and he definitely has a hatred for some of these people, or at least it comes across. And I think it's going to take Hickman coming in and Krakoa and the entire Superman universe to redo this stuff. It's bad, and it is bad on a critical level. There's people who like it, but for my opinion, it's bad on a critical level. It's been bad for sales. In, I think, March, he moves up to passing the 20% mark for comics he's under control of, and it's only growing. It's the virus that won't be stopped.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, he's just
That's
destroyed.
He's what we were talking about before we aired.
Very critical.
What we were talking about before we aired about how people have kind of passed their due date, you know, and as far as being comic creators, you know, we were talking about Frank Miller with Superman Year One, which was a damn disaster.
Yes,
and that, you know, Bendis has just gone by his due date, and you know, I think that he's not right mentally anymore. I don't think that he can keep track of things the way he used to. You know, he never really was an astounding writer to begin with. You know, at least in my opinion, I think he was passable in a lot of respects with moments of greatness, but I can't think of anything King was good at.
I mean, do you like the Vision run?
No.
Oh, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah,
considering. I mean, it's looking a lot. Maybe I'm tainted so much on Batman now. I'm looking at it with a more critical eye, but that was really the only thing I liked by him. But I thought it was pretty good. Miracle Man.
What's in Mr. Miracle? Like the first 6 issues was the best comic ever, and it just fell apart.
Well, then he killed him. You know, he gave up on life and he committed suicide. You know, it's like, what?
I think that was
the symbol of hope and everything for the DC universe. You know, he was Darkseid's foster kid. for abused and locked in places. That's how he became the great escape artist, is because he just got locked into places and he couldn't get out of unless he learned. And he was basically Harry Potter on steroids. Instead of just being locked under the stairs, he was locked in a torture chamber. But the beyond that, ever since that point, I just kind of haven't trusted King. And then when he got into Batman, it was just, I'm going to destroy Batman.
So, let's get back to the Bendis effect and all that. Perch, you just said that he was going to be responsible for 20% of all of DC Comics in March. Right now we got Greg Ruck on a Superman title, Matt Fraction, Jody Hauser, or Superman-related titles. With his Warner Comics, he's also brought in creators like that. His effect and his power is just growing and growing. When is this going to stop, or is he going to, basically take over all of DC Comics? When's he going to be the CCO?
Well, I mean, that's where he's headed. I mean, I think that's part of why they brought him, was to be a talent, bring in talent. That was the nature of his relationship and why DC wanted it, and they wanted that talent infusion, and ultimately he wanted to have a bigger say in the company. Part of the reason he left Marvel, or part of the reason why that relationship soured, is it became abundantly clear that he was not going to be able to get into movies, that Kevin Feige was running that as a very tight shop. And he tried, and he failed, and the creative committee was very strongly rebuffed. So he goes to DC with a lot of promises of, bring your network. Yes, bring all that talent over here. We want to beat Marvel. Bring as many people as you can and shepherd this line, and definitely, a role in the future of being, editor-in-chief or creative officer. I mean, that's where his sights are set, and that's where he wants to go, and that's how he's behaving. So I think everybody, and you talk to people inside the company, they all believe that's where his arc is headed. The only hiccup to all this has been his entry was not able to eclipse what Scott Snyder was already doing, and for that matter, even though King's sales fail, he was not able to take King's book in terms of sales. And so he hasn't landed like they thought. The fans are still wanting kind of the classic people who were in that company before him and liked him. And if anything, it's caused people to jump back to Marvel or over to Marvel, losing some pretty nice talent in that direction. I think in 2020, you'll see the crisis, you'll see the 5G stuff go down, and between 2020 and 2021, I think some of our classic DC creators are going to move back. So I keep saying move back, but move over to Marvel, and you're just going to see this swap of talent. But they're kind of committed to this path now. But it's a path that, there's a lot of rumbling, and a lot of DC creators who won't necessarily say it publicly are not happy, and they're looking for options out, either at Image or Marvel or somewhere else.
Yeah, and he hasn't brought sales at all.
No.
The only book that I think is outsold what you would have expected was Naomi, correct?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about like a new book with a new character nobody has seen, it sold better than Hope, but it got a lot of marketing. It got more marketing boosts than a lot of other titles that have come out from DC. I mean, if you think of other books that have tried to be launched with, an unknown character. I mean, we're talking about Mr. Miracle. Tom King, who is a highly hyped writer of Batman, on their #1 title, but Mr. Miracle did not get nearly the same amount of promotion and marketing that Naomi did. And Naomi wasn't a bad title. It just it sold well. I mean, it sold well for the push it got. So I'm not taking anything away from that, but it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't a slam dunk.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I think the highest it got up was maybe like in the 30,000s.
Yeah, which for a new character, not bad.
Good, yeah.
But it hasn't landed, and I think that there's at least some questions of how the next year or two rolls out. I mean, they're committed to their path now with the Forever Evil wrapping up, and then the Crisis event of the summer, and then getting into the 5G stuff like we talked about, and then we'll see kind of where the world falls. But it's strange to see so much so fast. They definitely took a big leap with him.
Mm-hmm. So Dylan, one of the aging up John is essentially unforgivable in my opinion. I'm not really a big fan of the people that he's brought in, but he did launch Event Leviathan from Action Comics, and Superman recently revealed his identity. So there have been some things going on. You know, what are your thoughts about Leviathan or that character, or Superman identity being revealed again?
It's funny that you mentioned the only two things that ever went on because the plot moves so slowly. But so Superman 18 was stupid because I talked about this for like 4 years ago during DCU, which was sort of a soft-ish relaunch after New 52, where they're like, okay, New 52 newness have worn off. No one really cares anymore. We need to add a new logo on our book. So they did DCU, and Superman revealed his identity was outed by Lois Lane, and he like shaved his head. His powers were reset to like Golden Age Superman, where he could like leap over tall buildings and stuff. And he drove a motorcycle and wore a t-shirt and jeans. And that was Superman Truth. And now we have a new one where his identity's out again, and Bendis had the originality to call it Superman Truth. So he knows very much about DC Comics. But the whole thing is like he says, I'm going to continue being Superman and Clark Kent because I want to represent both sides of my heritage. You just ruined everything Clark Kent ever did. Any piece Clark Kent ever wrote on Superman or the Justice League is now done. Anything that he wrote about Lex Luthor that like could have helped is now done. You now have a bias because you are Superman. Like nothing you say means anything anymore. You can't go undercover for journalism. You can't cover anything. Everyone's gonna be like, oh my God, it's Superman. Like you ruined Clark Kent completely. Like, what do you mean you're going to continue to be a journalist? That doesn't work. Also, his whole like, oh well, my family's protected because my son has powers and I'm here to protect my wife. What about every other person you interact with? The Daily Planet staff doesn't have powers or the Justice League to protect them. You can't be everywhere at once. Everyone you've ever interacted with is now going to be looked at that way. Like, and also it's Bendis. This is another thing where I think Bendis hates aspects of Superman. He treats Clark Kent as a dirty little secret. Prior to revealing Clark Kent's identity, he cucked Clark Kent with Superman. He had the whole world believe that Lois was banging Superman behind Clark's back, and Clark was just, oh well, like whatever about it. It's like, that's my wife. She's gonna do what she does, and like that's how he had the DC Universe's perception of Lois and Superman. He hates Clark Kent. It's very easy to tell. And so that's why he revealed his identity and ruined him. He hates Clark Kent. And so that whole reveal was stupid. And then Leviathan was literally just, hey, I want a new villain and I want everyone to know about it. Here's an event to set up that villain that does literally nothing other than say there's a new villain in the DC universe. And that's all Leviathan was. But his pacing is just his turtle-like pace. Like that's what he did with Ra's al Ghul, his new villain. He introduced him in his 6-issue miniseries. And then we don't know anything about him until issue 15 of Superman, where it's revealed Jor-El created him. But also, we still don't get a straight answer of whether he destroyed Krypton or not, which was the whole tease at the beginning, like 20 issues earlier. So,
drop the mic, man. Good job. I perfectly said. Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, all this stuff is fresh in my memory because I'm working on a video about it, so I just had to reread all of it. It's just it's so bad.
That sounds tragic. I'm sorry.
It's the worst reading experience ever because literally nothing happens. Even in Leviathan, there's an 80 page preview book that was like $10, and the first 4 issues are them talking about all the stuff that happened in that book.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was crazy? Are you kidding me?
I just don't know how you actively, I guess, don't like a character that you write consistently. Like before, like this Superman, I guess obviously Bendis now would be the guy, but I always used to think like Frank Miller hated Superman or didn't hate God. But like throughout, but he was writing that in Batman stories. So I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense. And he does this, but that sounds, like I said, tragic. Oh my goodness.
It is.
Like, wow. Yeah, no.
It's rough because there's no escape. Like we were talking about earlier, at least you have Detective Comics so you can escape King's Batman.
Very
there's
true.
No escape with this. He has action and Superman. He has complete
way out.
You had Superman
where he wants to.
Superman Year One's an escape.
Frank Miller.
Oh, God.
I mean, when that's your escape, Wes, I don't really know where you're getting your relief.
Although in January, Robert Venditti is writing new material for the Superman Giant, and I'll finally be buying one of the Giant issues. I can't wait for it. Robert Venditti on Superman. It's going to be great. So does anybody else have anything to say about Bendis or Superman before we move on?
I think Dylan got everything covered with his rant.
Yeah.
I was pretty comprehensive.
So, Pele, before we move on, I know you said at one point everyone from your store dropped Superman, including your father, who had been collecting the comics since the mid '60s.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Is anyone buying the comic again?
Yes, I've got some new fans. I got some new customers that came in from a shop that went out of business, and they pretty much buy everything DC. It's like a family, and they get like multiple copies of some issues. It's really weird, but I know it's bizarre. But
as someone with two boys, I can tell you sometimes you just have to have two.
And I've got customers for Superman again, but it's just let's see, I get 5 issues now, Superman.
Boom.
And sell 4 of them. One goes in the back issues.
There you go.
Perch, what are you noticing about Superman sales? Have they evened out? Are they still declining for your store as well?
No, orders declined when he came. Well, sorry, when he came on, there were people who didn't put it in the pull box. They were looking for individual issues, so it was definitely a let's see how this run goes. And they didn't then pick up and become subscribers. So you saw the overall line just soften and people drop. I mean, you're going to always have people who are just going to buy every issue of every run because they want the run forever. But the sales didn't go up; it declined. And with the name and the talent, I mean, there's some art talent on those books that are really strong that could be done somewhere else. And Event Leviathan sold. If you're talking about the trifecta of King's event, City of Bane, and Snyder's work, and then Leviathan was by far the weakest. I mean, by a huge mile was the weakest.
It was an event book fronted by an A-list writer, supposedly. Yep. Superman and Batman, and it was like selling under 50,000 on issue 2. I couldn't believe it.
Right, and having and not what I call a top Marvel talent, but a very known Marvel talent and a known long-term collaborator with Bendis. So all the cards were stacked. It was heavily hyped within the own book, not just with marketing, but with the title itself. They were pushing this storyline. If you're reading Superman, you kind of have to keep mentioning the Leviathan. What's going on over there? I mean, it was promoted and promoted and promoted, and even to the point where they were pushing another book. So it was very soft, and that should be a huge, huge warning sign to DC when they go to their next event, and it's like, oh, Bendis wants to do a big crossover event. It's like. And on top of that, I know that there were some editors and there were some creators who were pretty ticked that Bendis is like, I'm going to come over and do Superman. I'll leave Batman alone. I want to really do Superman. But, I think I'll do this Event Leviathan thing and I'll put Batman in there and I'll really write him the way I want to write him as well. And it's like, you just want everything, man. It's Green Lantern's next.
So one of the most frustrating things, we've kind of talked about it, at one point in Detective Comics, Batman is at a carnival, hanging out with Joker, having a little adventure. In King's Batman, Gotham has been taken over by Bane, and criminals are destroying everyone's life, and Alfred's dead. In Justice League, Batman is in another galaxy, taking on other enemies and stuff. And in Event Leviathan, he's in Seattle, supposedly saving the world in one night. I'm not sure where that's coming from. But none of these events are affecting the character across the line. Like, you would think that Alfred being dead and losing his city would be traumatic for Batman. It would affect him. But in the other books, it's like it's not even happening.
Mm-hmm. Everything's fine.
Well, it's like one of my customers says he's compartmentalized the entire situation with Batman to where it's just King is his own thing, and he just considers that like an Elseworlds storyline, which is funny since it's the main Batman title. But and everything else is continuity, and I think that's a safe way to look at it, because they're going to it's going to be undone. It's going to be undone as far as most of what King was written. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it matters, and that's funny considering we've wasted 2 years now.
Yeah, that was the one thing. I remember Tom King, after everyone was upset about the waiting, he said, just give me time. I'm telling you, City of Bane's coming. This is a 100-issue story. You're going to be blown away when City of Bane gets here. And I'm at the end of City of Bane. I'm like, I'm not really blown away here. I'm just as glad it's over. So yeah, I can't wait for my City of Bane moment with Brian Michael Bendis.
Keep in mind, I think we're living it for the next 5 years. But keep in mind that, like I think something that Hickman said in one of his interviews. I mean, your goal as a writer is to try and put things back in the box to where the person who comes next to you has something additive to work with and can tell their own story. And that's cool and that's okay. And I mean, Tom King sort of did that at the end. I mean, you can, like you said, you can put it back in the box and move on. Other than Alfred, it's a huge piece there, but what Bendis is doing with Superman, I think, is going to be much harder to put in the box. The
person who said that was Bendis.
What?
The writer that's accredited for that statement, that you want to make sure that you leave everything like you left it, like you found it, that way that the next writer can come in and take off. He wrote that.
I'll believe it. He's kind of Hickman's mentor, right?
Yeah.
He actually wrote that. He's the one that made that statement.
It's
so ironic.
Yeah, it's not what he believes now by a mile. And that's not what he believed then either. I mean, you look at his Marvel work. He did not put things back in the box. He made transformational changes to people's personalities and everything. So, yeah, I mean, it is ironic. It's definitely not. It's what he says, not what he does. But Superman's going to be much harder to package and put back in the box. Now, this is comics, so you can easily do it. It's like, oh, surprise, the multiverse has changed, and now just forget the last 5 years. I mean, you can always do that, but it's going to take a complete reboot of big parts of the universe to undo a lot of what Bendis has done. King, I think not as much. So that's why I weigh the two.
So Tevye in the comments is saying that you can't de-age Jonathan Samuel Kent, his boy Superboy, and I say you're wrong. All you have to do is say that the John Kent that was in that volcano that was tortured is actually from another multiverse, and those aren't his real parents, and the real John Kent is still somewhere safe with somebody protecting him, waiting to be discovered by his father and mother. There, boom. He was never de-aged. It was actually a different character that needs to go back to his timeline. It's too easy, right?
Real easy.
Yeah,
and he can just team up with Superboy Prime. This Superboy can, just John can team up with Superboy Prime, and they can go and destroy the multiverse somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, lots of ways you can undo it. You can have they went in space and he's put in a hibernation pod or something, and then the dad is tricking him and shenanigans, and hey, it's comics. You can do that kind of stuff, certainly. You can, but there's a lot. I mean, there's
a lot to undo.
A lot of pieces there. Yeah. And the Manhunter, I mean, is not the beloved franchise of everything in the DC universe, but I mean, that was a pretty major change to that whole mythology too. He's a super villain now, and is going to be messing up the world. So, okay.
So we've got a lot of people in the comments that are starting to talk about a little book called Doomsday Clock, which essentially was the last remnants of Rebirth. It just ended this week. I think it ended pretty well. I didn't love it maybe as much as some other people. I know, Josh, you wanted to talk about Doomsday Clock and what you thought about it.
Oh my God, I cried like a baby when I was reading it. I just saw that fly by in the comments, and I don't know how far in spoilers you want me to go, but there's a couple moments that some things are brought back and some memories are regained, and it just like, oh my God, I had to walk away from the book. I'm like, I don't want to get my book wet with tears. It was bad. But I feel like Geoff Johns and Gary Frank nailed it. They knocked it out of the park. It does have me very, very confused about where this sits in continuity, because there are elements of it where I think it could fit in, and then there's parts where I'm like, no, this doesn't fit in at all. Alfred being alive in it is a huge one. Like that's a big thing. I'm like, how's that working? I'm just gonna go off the list of the things because I wrote these down as I was rereading it when I like composed myself. So Alfred being alive is one thing. The world does not know that Superman is Clark Kent. General Sam Lane is alive, which I think Bendis killed him off in Leviathan, right?
Right.
Yeah, so those were like the three big things that I was like, wait, this doesn't make sense. But at the same time, it could still fit in with continuity because they actually did use Dr. Manhattan, like the ultimate MacGuffin that he is, and he basically rewrote the DC universe the way that it should be. And I'm kind of like, you have DC to me has a second chance with this. Like, you can still make it continuity and you can somewhat redeem yourself, or you can continue sticking your head further up your ass and just send yourself down into the pit. I felt like it was the perfect ending to the story. I do feel like it was hurt a little bit by the delays and stuff, which I'm pretty sure at this point, I think that was Dan DiDio's intentions. It will definitely read better by the trade. That's how I reread the first 6 parts. I got the hardcover collection, which is really nice. So it was a much easier read when you just had all 6 issues in front of you. So I'm sure once it gets collected as like a trade or a hardcover, it'll be a much better read for people. But Gary Frank, no one draws Superman like Gary Frank, I'll tell you that. Like, John Byrne was my favorite Superman artist, but after Doomsday Clock and seeing Gary Frank's work with them, oh man, no one draws Superman like that guy does.
All right, Dylan, I want to see a Superman fight. Tell me he's wrong.
It was so good. I love Doomsday Clock. So I'll say, if you're watching this, you haven't read Doomsday Clock. Obviously, spoilers. I don't want to spoil it for anyone that hasn't read it. So there's your spoiler warning.
Yep.
I'm just going to completely spoil the book.
Go ahead.
I honestly loved the fact that Superman is the guy to redeem Manhattan, to give him some hope. This guy that's been so just disconnected from humanity for so long and had no hope about anything. And then Superman is the one to change that was so great in that moment, because we'd had that preview page forever to where Superman, glowing red eyes is coming towards Manhattan. Beautifully drawn page. The pencils for that are amazing, and it looked like he's about to obliterate Manhattan. I was speculating so much, like, what's going to happen there. We just see he saves Dr. Manhattan from another guy, and that's what starts the whole roll. And that, again, it also helps with the DC universe where we get Jonathan and Martha Kent back, which was so great. And
I did not see that coming. That blew my mind.
Same. And when Superboy comes, how everything's connected to where Superman gets inspired by the JSA because of stories from his father. Oh, that was amazing. Like, that was a stroke of genius.
Story. It was awesome.
That was amazing. And I feel sorry for Gary Frank because they were saying that the ending wasn't changed. And that when Jeff Johns originally gave him the script, that Legion of Superheroes was going to be the original Legion of Superheroes that Jeff Johns did in his Superman Legion of Superheroes. But then they're like, oh, Bendis changed a lot of things about them, so you got to draw them this way. So he had to do that whole page like Bendis' new Legion of Superheroes. So I felt sorry for him that way. But man, the way the new characters, Marionette, and then where Mime and Marionette were connected was really well, because that's one of the things that I was confused about, because they were a big part of the beginning of the book, like the first couple issues, and I was like, what part are they going to play in it? Because John did say, your son is important to me, and that's why he saved them. And then the end had give him his powers, and he's going to be that world's Superman. Oh, I love that. It's just, it reminded me why I love Superman, because Bendis had just been doing so much to kill Superman, and Johns is just here to be like, here's why he's the best character in all of comics. Here you go. And I just loved it. And like you were saying, the pencils from Gary Frank are so good. I even like the story with Rorschach, to where in the beginning I didn't care for this Rorschach. Why bring back a different Rorschach? But in this, I like the way Johns tied it up. He did a pretty good job with it. And seeing how, like, the whole metaverse tie-in was great. I think the metaverse helps with fix a lot of things in the DC universe as well, and could definitely explain away a lot of things. It was cool seeing that the New 52 is actually still out there, and we could potentially have multiverse stories with that. I like that idea. The only thing that I would really say that I didn't care for was I wish we got a little bit more of Lex Luthor. Because when Jeff Johns originally talked about this at a con or something, or he got interviewed something, he said that one of the big things that got me excited for this series was he's like, we have the two smartest guys from each universe are going to meet, and that is going to be Lex Luthor and Ozymandias. I was like, oh man, I can't wait for that. That confrontation happened. It was only a couple pages, and then Lex doesn't really do anything for the rest of the book. We get some teases. So that was like my only gripe with the book was I would have liked a little more Lex Luthor, but it's not that big of a gripe. And man, Superman restoring hope.
Your only gripe?
Probably. There's not much else I can think about at the moment. I didn't reread all the issues. I'm just going off mainly 12. But that's like my only big gripe that I have about. There's nothing else that really sticks out to me besides that, and obviously the delays. But I'm talking about the contents of the book itself. But seeing Superman restore hope in the DC universe was great, and I really liked it.
It really centered on Superman, and this is another problem that I forgot to mention earlier, real quick, is that it really centered Superman as the center and the be all end all of the DC universe. Like there is no DC without him, which goes against this new Ultimate Timeline thing that Dan DiDio was talking about with Wonder Woman. I'm like, no, this is Jeff Johns got it right here. Superman is the be all end all. He is the beginning and he is the end. He is the everything. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. I was done.
No, I think it was a good series. I agree that the delays hurt it for sure. It delayed the emotional impact. I think people come back and they'll read it in trade and kind of it will have a twofold effect. One, I think people are going to really appreciate the story when it's read in one run because it is about hope and defining these characters and doing a lot of things there. And I think it will also have a negative effect in that it is going to be so contrary to what is going on in DC Universe right now. I mean, it actually suffers a bit from timing. And coming off of Rebirth, it was what was needed to really boost up the line and bring hope back. And this is why Superman is the center of kind of, or maybe not the center, but the anchor of hope and inspiration. This is a character who will go from My Hero Academia. He took the things in the past and he built upon it and made it stronger and became that beacon for. I've been watching too much anime, but anyway, it's very much what that does. But unfortunately, because it was late, because it was stretched out, and it does, I assume Gary Frank is a slow artist in a lot of cases. He's very great, so that's you work around that. But it does sound like some editorial interference was a major part of the delays, not the drawing, not the writing, which is that boggles your mind to think about. Yeah. So now it's having to run alongside the Forever Evil storyline and Bendis and Leviathan and Bane and this new kind of crisis and everything else. And it's a shame because a lot of amazing things were set up. And now that punch gets softened significantly by the other writers who are doing their own things in the book and largely just kind of ignoring it. I mean, the Superman in Doomsday Clock is not the Superman that we see in monthly titles by a mile. It's close to what Snyder's Superman was like in Justice League, where there was that anchor to hope, but it has nothing to do with the actual title. And same thing with Batman, the Batman being a detective in Doomsday Clock, and a lot of those character beats, nothing to do with City of Bane. So it's a shame because I think that was a really major anchor for DC, something to build upon. And this is what DC as a company I think should be, is this bigger than life superheroes, open and drama. I mean, Marvel's the world outside your window and that gritty world. You can explore that. DC has always been this other thing that I think was really perfectly captured in Doomsday Clock, but it's not where the company's at or going or will be at for at least 2-3 years now. On that happy note.
Well, okay, my turn. Then Johns lays a big steaming dump right in the middle of the comic book. All right. I've had it with the political crap. And it's no different in this one. You get Reggie getting brained by a Trump supporter wearing a red ball cap with, "I'm sick of your kind." Come on, Johns. Why do you need to do that? Why? It had nothing to do with the rest of the story. The rest of it's brilliant. It's wonderful. It's an absolutely incredible book. And then he has to throw political spin into it. And I had people bringing it back for a refund. Now, granted, this area is sensitive right now, but as far as getting attacks, you know, the redneck Trump supporter type of situation. But, you know, after I gave a refund on the 4th issue that somebody had brought in saying, I'm sick of this crap, why don't they get over it? You know, it really just grinds my gears now. And they've got to just quit. They got to quit it. You know, it's 3 years now. Get over it. You lost the election. Run again. You know, we don't need this garbage anymore. You know, it's getting to the point now to where it's you know, it's offensive. You know, I'm done. I'm done with it.
I don't know.
He's a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
He just has a red hat on.
Yeah,
the allegory was there, though. I mean,
Well, yeah,
absolutely, it was there. No, that doesn't be shit. No,
It
absolutely was there.
He had the red hats. They're playing off of the the red hat drama that goes on, and in the news, the guy has a MAGA hat on, and they're definitely playing off that category. I don't know. It was a quick moment for me. I didn't have to say
the irony there that Hope and this wonderful thing, and all these heroes are coming back, and there's always room for redemption. There's always room for you to make the right choices and the right decisions. The angels just are calling from heaven. The sky is open and light shines down. And why don't you try a little better of that yourself, Johns? There's the irony for you.
I just thought it's like,
look.
Yeah. I mean, I get what
there's your irony. Shithead can't even let other people get on with their lives, and he's got to rub their political nose in a book that he's writing that had no bearing whatsoever on the story.
I just saw it as one page, and I didn't even read into that like you did. I didn't even until you said that, I didn't even realize that it's a red hat that's supposed to mean
I know,
MAGA.
And that's why I was sitting back going, is that it? Is that all you?
That's the thing though, as far as you said rub your face in it, it didn't feel ham-fisted at all. It was like one page of just
you didn't think that, but after I gave back several refunds, I realized that customers
and again, I
think
that
were going, dude, this is too much.
I think maybe people are just a little bit too sensitive where there's any depiction of a person with a red hat.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
If you think that that's just that's the only part of it, and it's just a red hat and everything like that, Wes, that's fine. That's your perception, but that's not.
But don't you think you're giving away your power to other people when you're letting a picture of a guy in a red hat doing something bad affect you emotionally?
Well,
Gee, I'll let you talk to my customers about that because they're the ones that are throwing shit at me.
But that's what I mean. I think it's heavily on perception. You're right, because I'm saying from your base, from your clientele, I could imagine them being fired up. Whereas me, I mean, I think I'm so used to seeing, whatever side of the divide
we've been indoctrinated into it. We've been indoctrinated.
Frank Miller's on one end and he's using it, and Jeff Johns on the other end, he's using it. So for me, I mean, I'm sure for you and other readers as well, you just kind of, I guess you don't become desensitized to it because there's certain people who are still kind of fired up, especially in recent events and how that's factored into their perspective on comics. Comics usually views an escape. So you're having that kind of play off of that. But in the same way, it's like, this is the trending almost like you had Obama pop up in comics 10 years ago in just random spots that didn't really make sense. Like, on the one hand, I get what you're saying, man, totally. Like, perspective-wise, they're like, dude, we're just trying to read a book. Like, we don't need to see this right now. I don't need this. Like, it makes no bearing on the story. It's kind of dumb. For others, like, okay, it's a one page, like, that's like a shout out, or there's like a little notice there. And it's almost like we're talking about Tom King. Every writer's gonna put like some type of thing on it. I guess that's John's way of his own stance in case you need to know what that was. But I think it's just so permeated comic culture and just culture in general. You can't get away from it. I mean,
you can't.
No matter what you believe, you're going to see it. I mean, whether it's a one-page spread
you can get away from it, and that's why we have a readership now that's luckily breaking 30,000 on the average comic.
Okay,
and because I've got customers.
Right?
Hold on,
yes.
I've got customers that I've cold calling them that were customers 10 years ago. 15 years ago, I've still got their phone number. Call them up. Hey, dude, we miss you over here. Would you like to? Are they still injecting politics into everything? Oh, yeah. F you. I'm not coming back to that. Not F me, but F them. And it's just, and I can't. It's like trying to, sell snow to Eskimos. They're over it. I've got plenty. I can turn on TV and see that. I want comics for escape.
Isn't that now though the new like I want to side note or distract there, but playing off what you're saying, sir, isn't that like in like the new culture now? Like, I mean, there's certain spots that aren't, but like it seems like it's everywhere. I'm not saying that it can't go back or whatnot, but
pop culture, yeah. And I think that's the divide, and that's the reason why comics are not growing anymore.
Well, okay, with some comics, yeah, but if you're reading Watchmen to escape politics, you made a big mistake.
That's true.
Like, that's kind of your fault as the reader, I feel like.
That's Watchmen, though. I'm talking about something like Doomsday Clock, which integrates, but it also has strong DC characters in it. And when you're a publisher like DC, like that, you need to appeal. And when you've got sales in the Southeast United States on Doomsday Clock that are 40% lower than anywhere else in the country per capita, there's a reason why.
So you think DC Comics should adjust their entire line because sales in South?
I think that they need to draw the line on politics. They need to draw the line on politics. They need to say, okay, you guys are being pissy. You need to grow up, stop being little kids. Get on with your life.
No, I can understand people being upset.
Yeah.
I can understand the allegory. Yes, there's a guy in a red hat, but I just think getting overly emotional about one panel in a comic book is like giving your power away. It's like, oh, look, all I have to do is put a red hat on somebody and you'll freak out and you can't.
Well, I'm sure in the Philippines it's a little bit different.
No, but
you have no idea what you're talking about here in the Philippines.
I do know what I'm talking about.
You'd like to come over here and live for a week and see the politics.
I lived there for quite a while.
Well, why don't you come back?
I mean, time does change things.
I've been in the U.S. for quite a while, Pele. I was 20 years. Jesus.
Hey, keep in mind,
this.
Just for the sake of throwing it in here, keep in mind this is a panel with a guy wearing a red hat. And at least from the script backup material they had published, it doesn't say, Jeff Johns does not say, hey, draw a guy in a red hat here. He says, depict this violence. So we're smacking Jeff Johns a little bit. For what it's worth, it's the colorist and the artist who probably made the hat red. There's nothing in Jeff Johns' script.
I would have thought that if he didn't say your kind.
Yeah, but it was
it's a racist comment. It was a racist comment in the panel.
Yeah.
And I believe that that's.
But there's racism. I mean,
it does technically say your kind. He said, I knew I'd catch one of you trying to break into my store.
Yeah.
It's not so direct as your kind.
And racism exists. I'm pointing out for the sake of argument here that we're saying, Jeff Johns, politics, anti-Trump stuff. There was actually nothing in his script that said anything with anti-Trump stuff, unless we're saying any description of racism at all anywhere is going to be assigned to Trump. That's ridiculous. That's ignoring a ton of history.
It's pretty much has been for the last 3 years.
I was going to say a lot of people do that.
Sure, but those people are nuts. I mean,
they're crazy, and let them be crazy somewhere else.
And that's why comics are doing what they're doing. It's the reason why sales are dropping.
It's just there's a hat that was depicted as red. That's the colorist. I'm just saying, that.
I don't think it was the colorist. I think it was John's. But hey, that's just me.
Fair enough.
And that's what I hear from customers, and that's why I didn't sell as many copies of it. And I'm sitting on 30 of them. I had people just
get short nose, man. Flip them.
Well, the way I see it is that I rolled my eyes at the panel, but I felt I was much more concerned about the narrative. I felt it helped. It fit with what was going on with Reggie's character at the moment, where he was down and out, and he didn't want to fight, and he was just being taken back to being brutalized. And I rolled my eyes at it, and I'm like, oh, that's a MAGA hat. That's a Trump supporter. Like, okay, you got your message across, but I waited like a year and a half for that goddamn book. I wasn't letting one stupid panel designed to, promote anti-Trump rhetoric ruin that for me. Like,
well,
no.
when I read it the first time, I'll admit I just passed over it. But after I had so many people come by
I mean, it's different for you because of that. Yeah, I don't have a store that I'm losing money on because of it. You lost money on, and like you said, you're sitting on 30 issues. I understand why you're upset about it, but I just
probably didn't lose any sales over it. Did you, Birch? You probably didn't lose any sales over that.
No, I don't think anybody noticed. I mean, yes, but I'm in a different community, absolutely. And I saw stuff on message boards about it, but generally the sentiment was, I mean, you've got other comics that's got Trump drawn as MODOK. I mean, this in the grand scheme of things, a red hat, I think most people ignored. And
they don't; those other comics don't sell here either.
Fair enough. I also think the argument is it's a big different story if you're inserting that stuff into your average issue of Batman or Superman. Watchmen, yes, I hear your argument and that it is integrating the DC universe for sure, but Watchmen is by its nature political. I mean, that was the core of that comic, and it was the core. Even Doomsday Clock was hitting that right from the beginning. It was going to be tapping into those things, and I think in the grand scheme of things, frankly, I was expecting a lot more given the current state of things.
I mean, there wasn't any more. There actually wasn't any until this issue.
Yeah, they were kidding.
I think you mean like overtly political. Like, there was like traces of it before. I mean, now it's I mean, with the delays and everything, you have time to at least give. I don't know what it was. I don't want to say the wrong word as far as like a spotlight on it or a moment there. But you're right. You're having something almost like they're not doing it or wouldn't do it, but like X-Men, where you kind of know, okay, there's certain themes that are outside of the escapism of comics in that sense, so that they can touch on these elements of politics. With the Doomsday Clock, I kind of get that in the sense that, okay, we kind of know that we're treading on the water. And like you said, Mate Pele, it is like the environment and having a comic store and sales in that community that you've been there for a while, that you kind of know the read of that situation, how that impacts certain people. But by and large, for most, it's like not that big a deal. But then again, I guess that goes to an underlying, I don't know if you don't call it a problem or a theme of having inclusion of personal, modern day current events and the different stances and who's in charge of what and how they feel when they write the book and how that impacts the readers. You know what I mean? Because I like to be beat over the head with it, and I don't care where I stand on it personally. But
I'd really like for somebody like John's to come to my shop and meet my customers, because least racist people you'll ever know. I mean, they're sweethearts, absolute sweethearts. These are just great people. We've got, I've got customers that come in, African American, Asian American, tons of Latinos, and I guess it's just the region or the area. But the first person that brought the Doomsday Clock back was an African American man, and he says, When is this going to end? When's this going to be done? When are they going to get over this? And I'm like, I know, man. I don't know what to say. I said, I can give you your money back. He says, yeah, I don't want this. I don't want this anymore. And I was like, ooh, and it happened again. Then it happened again. I think it just caught people off guard because they weren't used to seeing that, in, that blatant as far as in a mainstream title. And it was just it was people say make a mountain of a molehill. That's and that's a prerogative. They want to say that. It's just this. I'm tired of not selling comics. I love to sell comics and I want to sell comics. But they really make it hard when they do stuff like this. And it just, anyway, I've said my piece.
I get you on that.
So there was some other stuff set up in Doomsday Clock, a lot of other different like multiverses and futures, including 5G. Yep. Perch, what did you think about the multiverse 5G being included? Do you think that was part of the original script?
Not exactly. I mean, I think that, 5G is a newer initiative, so that was definitely not in mind when it was begun. But it is, I think what was intended with those pages was to try and kind of make a little bit more sense of the multiverse and everything that was going on and where the company was headed. So I think it was almost like left as an open page to where they could fit in things. And very similar, this is a horrible analogy, but to what Marvel does when they they do an event in the last what seems like 20 pages now is a hype for their future events. It wasn't as blatant marketing as that, but it was a nod to, hey, we're cleaning up our multiverse, we're cleaning up some of these elements and trying to make a little more sense for readers. This is just a personal opinion. It may be mine and mine alone, but I get this feeling that DC has an insecurity complex around their continuity and how complex it is. And it's so hard for everyone to understand, oh my God, we have to make these maps and the multiverse and all the rest. And I think everybody I've ever talked to and myself, it's not that hard to figure out. I mean, people, yeah, but DC always is harping on this, like, oh, shit, our comic universe is just so hard to deal with, and so we have to do this whole event where we explain to readers what Earth 1 versus Earth 20 is, and it's like, people just roll with it. It's all right. And I wish that would stop at DC, because I think it drives them to make decisions and events and pages and try and clean up things that do not need cleaning up, and they wind up making things worse when they clean it up. So you're nodding, you're with me. I've got one supporter on this.
Sounds like a government operation. Anytime you try to fix things up, you just make it 100 times worse.
You make it worse.
Oh, I fully agree. I've got, I get customers come by and they're like, they'll see, oh gosh, my mind just went blank, but they'll see not Doomsday, Stuck in the Source Wall. Oh crap.
Justice Doom War, Justice League.
My mind went blank. Anyway, you've got a character over here that's stuck in somewhere and has been stuck in somewhere for a long time. Then all of a sudden they appear in this comic, and they don't explain how. And DC's bad about it.
That sounds like Young Justice with Connor Kent.
Yeah, it's this constant thing with them, though. They'll write a character into something and then never explain how they got out of it, and it does kind of break. It kind of breaks continuity there. It kind of breaks the customers, the readers, train of thought of sorts, I guess you could say.
But I think customers, I mean, we talked about earlier with Batman and Detective Comics being completely different universes. And I think that you can take one road or the other. I think you can take one road where you say, these are all separate adventures, these characters. They don't tie together. If you don't like this writer, look over here. It's a different story, different universe. Don't worry about it. You're getting stories. And we're not going to worry about it either. And you can just, or you do what DC does, where they're like, okay, let me make kind of an explanation of how these things fit together. And my argument is, don't make the explanation. Just live with it. You got a big line to produce. You got lots of different creators. They're not going to all line up until you have a really powerful kind of editor-in-chief and a really strong editorial. They are super understaffed in editors. They're not running the company that way. So therefore, it's work with what you got. And what you got is, some creators telling different stories. But the second you go in there and you're like, all right, fans are wondering how City of Bane ties into Detective Comics. All right, well, the Mr. Freeze was over here, and Alfred was this, and then Bane was doing this, and it was happening in the 1 week moment between. It's like, God, don't stop. What are you doing? You're making everybody's head hurt. Just tell stories.
Oh, Darkseid. That's the character I was thinking of.
Yeah.
He's been stuck in the Source Wall for 3 years, but he still keeps showing up everywhere.
Sure. I mean, I think you either have to roll it, or you have to, if you're going to say continuity matters, then you have to make continuity matters. Then you do need that editorial firm stick, and you can't let these things go on. Yep. But you're saying continuity matters, and then they're not using the stick. So here we are.
Exactly. I think it would help if they had like a message board, for DC. They could just say, this is where this character is now. And just sort of keep it updated or something like that, just for the creators. I know that
I think it's hidden on DC Universe, if you ask me.
Marvel did that for a long time. They actually kept the Marvel, they had the whole official Marvel Universe, guidebook, and they actually kept it internally. They had 3 guys that their full-time job was to do nothing but keep track of the Marvel continuity and to constantly update the handbook.
It's smart.
For creators.
It's smart.
Brilliant.
it takes a lot of work. And I think that's where it comes down to. Are people going to be afraid of that work? Or are they going to do the work? It's hard to keep everything in line, especially when you're underpaying creators, so they don't necessarily want to listen to you. You've got politics going on where creators don't like each other. That's hard. It takes a really firm hand, and that firm hand is just not where the company's heads are at right now.
So we talked a lot about how continuity is kind of really off. There's three real major voices at DC Comics right now. Tom King, who's kind of just on Batman, Brian Bendis, who's kind of taken over all the line, but you also have Scott Snyder in his event, You're the Villain, which kind of started off with the Batman Who Laughs. Well, first it started with Metal, then you had the Batman Who Laughs, and now it basically just became a line-wide event where essentially there was a tie-in to every DC comic, I think, except for maybe like Aquaman. Maybe even that one had one too.
Oh, it did.
Perch, what are your thoughts of You're the Villain and the way that it's been rolled out?
Well, we've talked about this before, so I'll just talk a little. I'm really curious to get other voices on this besides mine. But I think as an initiative, it was a decent initiative. It's an idea. I think you're going to focus on villains, and that's cool. And you're going to really make some super threats. If you listen to my videos, I'm a big believer in making big threats and making villains strong. I think that is good for heroes. It's good for stories. So I think he rolled out an initiative that was compelling. And I think kind of like what I was just saying, there was no editorial directive for people to follow it in any kind of coherent way. And, I get beat up by people in the industry every time I say this. Again, for the record, disclaimer, there are too few editors. They're overworked. They're trying their best, I'm sure. So This is not they all suck. It's simply the company as a whole from the top is not putting the money in to coordinate this and hire the talent and make it happen. And so I think he had a good idea that didn't get really filtered anywhere, and as a result, it really weakened the impact. But I'd really love to hear other people.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. Like in Detective Comics, you could tell Tomasi wasn't really into it because he would have 2 pages at the very end that didn't tie into the story.
Yeah.
That would be his tie-in, and then Hawkman, Venditti kind of went full-fledged into it. The gift and all that things were part of the story.
I think the problem is that a lot of the top talent, as far as comic personalities goes into the writing, and as far as creative ability, and the step down in talent from writer to editor is just this huge gulf, I guess. And where it wasn't that way. You had before you had these incredible editors that Marvel and DC had back years ago that were also writing caliber, and they had bigger personalities, and I guess they could kind of muscle the writers around a little bit, saying, no, you're not going to do that. This is what you're going to stay within this continuity space. And now I don't think that they really have those personalities as far as in the editorial department anymore, except maybe like the editor-in-chief. So,
yeah, they need to bring in like Wolfman to be the guy over all of Superman, and maybe put Tomasi in charge of all of Batman.
Yeah, they need a stronger personality to kind of wrangle these guys, because I think a lot of the situation here is that the egos of these comic creators. I've seen it with Donny Cates, I've seen it with King, I've seen it with Bendis. These are guys that have egos that are the size of small cities. So and they do. They think that they're rock stars, and maybe within a really small bailiwick they are. But it's gotten to the point now, though, that the creators have gotten these incredible egos, and nobody can tell them what to do. It's what we were talking about before with Frank Miller. Who's going to tell Frank Miller how to write his book? I could just imagine the editor standing outside of his office with sweat beading down his forehead, saying, "I've got to go in and tell Miller that he shouldn't be writing in third person here."
I write the goddamn Batman. That's what you're gonna get to. Yeah.
Am I gonna stand across from the man, Miller, the man himself, and tell him that you don't know how to write this? So.
So I found You're the Villain off-putting. I don't like being forced into an event. I don't like the way Marvel does their events, but at least it's only like 2, maybe 3 series get tied into the event. There's a bunch of extra tie-in like miniseries and stuff. But in this one, like everything was rolled into it. What did you think about that, Dylan? Do you like being everything being tied in like that?
No, yeah, I agree. The whole tie-in thing was stupid. Tomasi handled it best and actually made a really good story with Year of the Villain. That whole Mr. Freeze thing with Nora was great. Like, he actually did something that made sense to where Luthor gave him something to where he could actually restore Nora, except it's kind of, there were some bad side effects for it. Like, he did a great job using Year of the Villain, but no one else really did, and I don't blame them because they're getting forced into the story that didn't want anything to have any part of. As far as the Justice Doom War itself, I like the story in Justice League. Like, it's a fun read. Like, you pick up Justice League and it's a fun read, but the tie-ins to everything else, I'm not a fan of. I don't like the characterization of Lex either. It's not like that. Those are my main big problems. The Year of the Villain shouldn't have happened. The whole turning everyone into different mutated versions of themselves, and everyone just starts talking really edgy teenagers. That's how everyone talks that gets mutated if you're reading the Superman Batman book. Yeah. And it's just kind of weird because I like the voice of the Batman who laughs. I thought Snyder did a good job with that, but everyone else who's been mutated is just does not sound good at all. And the tie-ins are ruining some books. It sucks. There have been books books that have seriously been ruined by tie-ins. Kyle Higgins' run on Nightwing and New 52, I felt sorry for him because I thought the stories he did were good, but they kept making him tie into everything Scott Snyder was doing with Batman. Every 4 issues, hey, New 52 Batman's our best-selling book. You got to tie into what he's doing. He's doing something with Joker right now. Do something with Joker with Nightwing. Hey, there's something with Court of Owls. Do that. He had no chance to do an original stuff. When he did do original stories, he did a good job. But same thing's happening right now with Year of the Villain, towards you just gotta tie into it. Besides Bendis, I think the banner was on his book, but he's not really doing anything with it at all. But maybe Year of the Villain would help him.
His book was the first one to remove the banner because originally I think he even shipped out some issues with it. Yeah. And they changed the cover and removed it. You remember that, right, Pele? Where all of a sudden those stupid covers were selling for $30 on eBay.
Oh yeah, it was insane. Now I can't even give them away. But at least I made a few bucks when I did. But I mean, I can't believe that. Yeah, Bendis was the one that kept begging, you can't put that Year of the Villain crap. I'm not doing that stupid stuff. Again, back to weak editorial, not being able to, handle the writers. It's just.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, you were talking about the Justice Doom War, and I think Perch. I think I heard you talking about this. In Justice Doom War, you had this new Lex. He's like the apex Lex. He's the most powerful Lex Luthor we've ever seen in the history of DC Comics. But then in Superman, when Superman reveals his identity, it's the old version of Lex. Does that throw you off?
Yeah, I mean, for the record, I don't care for the Apex Lex. I was not a fan. I like the classic Lex, and classic Lex is a really compelling villain. So I think making him a white Martian and super powerful is not an unnecessary turn. That said, writers want to do things, run a storyline. Okay. I think it's disrespectful for Bendis to throw that issue out, and you've got Apex Lex sitting there in the middle of a big storyline that's coming to its climax. That's going to head into the last mile. So whether you like it or not, for the good of the company, I'm a believer of you gotta suck it up and do what cards you're handed. And so he writes Apex Lex standing there and then just instantly devolving to his human form and then sitting there in his suit thinking. And it's it was an incredibly, in my view, disrespectful moment. I know the writers didn't see it that way, and maybe that was not their intent or whatever. But for the readers, it's just a passive aggressive shot at another.
So Perch being too sensitive. Was that what happened?
No, yeah, but now it's we didn't see it that way. No. No ill intent. We get all along. We're all buddies. Okay, fine, that's fine. And I'm sure that's true and great, wonderful, happy days. But it comes across to the readers like a passive aggressive shot at another storyline that you're banking on to make a lot of money. So I just think that stuff is poor, and I do like what Tomasi did. I think what Snyder teed up was really the idea of a banner of here's an opportunity for you to play with your villains and do something big with it, and you can or you can't. And somewhere I think the marketing got torqued, and maybe somebody got in there and said, let's do Dark Reign for DC. I don't know what all went on there, but the storytelling opportunities I think in Hawkman and Detective Comics were really good coming out of that. So we got some good out of that. But then we got some also very bizarre stories. I agree completely with the Nightwing. That shoehorn in was unfortunate. Completely.
Yeah, so with the Justice Doom War and the Apex Lex, this is winding up, and this is all moving, with Year of the Villain to this new event. That's one that's going to culminate next year. How do you think they've executed, and do you see this being a big hit, Pele?
I think that I think it could be if they. It really depends on. It really depends on how the teams line up. Have they announced the full teams as far as the?
I think the only thing that we kind of know is that Scott Snyder is going to be like the lead architect.
Yeah, and really, I think we kind of know that the big crossover event's going to have Mr. Snyder and going to have his big drawing buddy.
Okay, I think that I have reservations about it because I think that people are just about evented out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
but Marvel's certainly doing it.
Yep.
And especially now with DC, the Year of the Villain just sort of like sputtering and it hasn't sold well at all for me. And I just keep getting the comments of, oh God, what do I have to buy for this one? And when it reaches that point, they just need to get off the accelerator a little bit. Yeah. And get back to basics and clean up house, because people should be excited for this stuff, and certainly aren't.
So, Perch, I do want to ask you about this. We know that Tom King's Batman run was prematurely ended at 85 rather than going to 105. James Tynion IV, or maybe it's Tynion, is the new writer, but he's only going to 100. Do you think, because he is close friends with Scott Snyder, that maybe he was put onto that Batman book because he would play nice with Scott and flow into the event and then eventually reach 5G?
No, I don't think it's that reason. I think he's seen as a strong, comfortable writer. He's somebody DC likes. He's very reliable. He's puts in scripts. It's a person that was trusted to take Batman. I mean, if they're looking around, they're like, okay, who are we going to put on Batman? Now, because Snyder's wrapped up, King's gone. We put Bendis there. Bendis already owns this other piece. I think there is at least some sanity in the company not to just throw everything to him. They didn't want to bring in somebody new, untested. So they want a good, solid person the company knows to handle the book that, on a monthly basis, typically sells their best. So I think that was the decision there. And I do think as well, I mean, I think I said this on your other show. I mean, he won't be gone with 100. We're going to get this interruption and he'll be back to the title. I mean, if you read his blog and everything he's doing, he's architecting a run. So
yeah, there's still a lot of confusion going around about 5G that, oh God, they're getting rid of the old characters for good. No, this is a thing, it's just, they're going to be, they're only kind of putting them on the shelf, for just a little while, and they're going to, roll out these new guys and see how that works out. But, there's still a lot of confusion out there. People think that, DC is replacing the characters entirely. And, I mean, if it's sold really well, I think that, they'd probably consider it.
Well, sure. They consider anything. If it goes, I mean, same thing with Age of Apocalypse, though. Within Marvel, that sold well, but if that would have really taken off and doubled the sales, they would have stuck with it much longer. And the same thing going on here.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Sorry. So one of the misunderstandings, that we've heard about this 5G thing was that while 5G is going on, all the classic heroes are going to be shipped over to DC Black Label, and readers are going to be fleeced for $7 an issue, and that's the only place they'll be. And it's it's kind of a big conspiracy on that's what Black Labels will be for that point in time. Black Label has been so confusing. It started out, it's supposed to be the premier brand for Elseworlds titles with the best characters, with the best writers, with the best artists. And we kind of got that at first, with Batman Dan, Brian Azzarello, Lee Bermejo. Last Night on Earth, which just concluded with Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo. Whatever you think about Superman Year One, that you do have a legendary writer, Frank Miller, legendary artist, John Romita Jr. And now it's kind of morphed into something else. You got the Young Animal books there. You got Hill House Comics there. What else you got? You got the Sandman universe. Pele, what is DC Black Label?
Oh God, it's Vertigo and the Wonder Books and all the stuff. It's the end pieces. It's kind of like the sausage of, it's kind of like the bologna of, it's got pieces of this and pieces of that and ground up together and God knows what else. And I think the prestige format, it is a prestige format. I mean, it is. All the books that are published out of it are prestige, card stock, higher quality. But, I just limited, more boutique situation. I think that the books that, perhaps may not sell as well in the regular comic format, they're kind of shuffled off to there. But it's definitely not adult, like everybody suspected when Damned came out. So, I don't know. People have asked me, "Oh, what are they going to do with Black Label?" I said, "I guess they just put whatever in Black Label. It just doesn't fit anywhere else."
Mm-hmm. The catch-all, right?
It's the catch-all. It's the catch can. Whatever doesn't fit in one of the universe, either the main continuity universe or in any of the established variant, universes, that it just gets stuck there. And it could have been a lot more, but now it's just kind of like the repository for weird stuff.
So, Perch, I know this might hurt some people's feelings. How long do you think it's going to be before they slap a Black Label on Doomsday Clock and make sure that out of continuity?
Yeah. I mean, I think they won't. I mean, they're not going to retroactively go back and do that unless
they've done that for a lot of stuff.
I don't know. Unless somebody, I don't see it happening for a number of reasons. I think that it is too connected to what at least they're trying to move some pieces in place, because they did do the 5G announcements at the end, because they did try and reference these other multiverse. I think it will be tough. Now, I think there's two scenarios. Maybe somebody at DC decides they can slap the Black Label on it and put some nice paper on it as well and charge somebody $100. I can see that happening as a pure business decision. But I mean, DC's barreling full head. I mean, you got to look at their line. They're wrapping up this Doom War. Evil wins. We're going right into the Dark Crisis. We get that. Then we get, 5G. I mean, the next 12 months are fairly locked at this point. And so I don't think they're going to really try and go back and reformat this stuff. I mean, their attention's just not on it. I'm talking more pragmatically than anything else. But now I'm seeing a shaking of the head. So let's get the counterpoint.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I think all the stuff that was mentioned in Doomsday Clock that goes with continuity, they mentioned 5G and all that. I think it's Dan Didio's way of saying, like, here's a little teaser of where we're going. We're not completely taking Geoff Johns out of continuity. They have to pay him respect. But there's just too many indiscrepancies with Doomsday Clock and what was going on there to align it with continuity. Like I said, when I talked about the issue itself, you had Alfred, who was alive. Sam Lane is alive. Nightwing was in his rebirth costume as Dick Grayson. Batgirl had a new costume. Martian Manhunter was there. There was just too much going on. It was like this perfect version of the DC universe that they're like, yeah, we were going towards this, and we're going to now use it to say, here's this 5G thing we're going to do, because I think they're trying to, they move, it's hard for me to explain. They moved Doomsday Clock as to like be this perfect, flawless rendition of the DC universe. Like, this is our universe with no flaws. This is after we fixed everything, problems that started back in 85 and 86 with Crisis on Infinite Earths. The first time they tried to reboot, they finally managed to smooth everything over. But there's too many indiscrepancies with what was going on in Doomsday Clock and what is going on in the main continuity. Not to mention, when Doomsday Clock was first announced, Geoff Johns said we were going to get 1 year later stories to catch all of the mainline titles up to what had happened in Doomsday Clock. That we haven't heard about that in about a year. And Three Jokers is the natural conclusion to everything that Geoff Johns started back in Justice League number 50, the new 52, and that is officially Black Label. That tells me everything I need to know. Doomsday Clock,
that's a good point.
I think Doomsday Clock won't get the Black Label attachment until, I think, Pele, you said it, that they can collect it into some kind of big omnibus or a real nice hardcover edition that they can charge $50, $60, $70 for, and then you're going to see that slapped right on the front of it.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, just 1 second. I want to say thank you very much to Doc. He's normally a guest here on the Comics Aficionados, but we're talking DC. He barely reads DC, but apparently he reads Flash Forward. He says it's the best DC book. Thank you so much for the super chat, Doc. And he will be here next weekend for the Marvel Comics Year in Review. Who else thinks Flash Forward's amazing?
It's good. I enjoyed it. It's my son was telling me how much he enjoys it, and I read it on his request, and it's good. It's really, really good. I was impressed.
But can it undo Heroes in Crisis?
No,
but
it can do a decent job at making things a little better. It's a nice Band-Aid.
Yeah, it's a good Band-Aid on what they did to Wally. But I think the only way they could undo that is if they just retconned the whole thing, and I don't think that they're going to do that.
And that's the book, that Heroes in Crisis book, that should have come up earlier when we were talking about Tom King thoroughly wrecking things. But really, sorry to drag back, but I don't. When we were talking about Doomsday Clock and Black Label, I don't disagree with any of your points. And I guess my argument would be, DC has never tried to structurally clean up their continuity in that way by putting something in another label. Maybe they will this time. They don't really go backward with this stuff. So if they reprint it and suddenly put Black Label on it, I think I can't see them doing it. But we'll see. That'd be good. Like
Black Label on Watchmen, All-Star Superman.
Yeah.
Batman Year One. Well, not Batman.
That's all stuff that wasn't. Canon
that's
anyway, so
that was
when they put it on there. It's like the official seal that it's not continuity.
Yeah, and I don't think that them putting Black Label.
I'm sorry.
I don't think that them putting Black Label onto Doomsday Clock is backtracking either, because of the delays. We just got the end of it. I think if they slap the Black Label on that, I don't think it's backtracking at all. I think it's just them kind of wrapping it up and just kind of saying, like, I felt like the whole time after like issue 6 or issue 5 or 6, you just seen them like very quietly shuffling it off to another folder. Like, please don't notice us doing this. We're not making any noise. We're just putting it over here. You're still going to have it. We're going to reference it. It's just not where we're going anymore. And I mean, that was I cried out of joy while I was reading Doomsday Clock number 12, and when I was done with it, I was physically angry that this is not continuity anymore. Like, I don't like to say I hate things, but god damn it, I hate the direction that they went in. They had everything on a silver platter for him, and they somehow managed to mess it up. It's unbelievable.
I think that's well said. No, I feel the same. I would be curious. I'm curious to see how it rolls out. You make good points. I think it could go either way. I'm also curious what happens with Geoff Johns is supposedly making a lot of inroads at Time Warner and with the corporate side of the world. And, could we see a Kevin Feige-like situation with him? That would be quite entertaining to me if in 2 years he comes back and says, clean house.
Although I was talking about Black Label's titles. The 35th anniversary edition of The Dark Knight Returns, they're coming out with a really nice, like the absolute, the absolute edition of Dark Knight Returns. It's going to be Black Label.
Yep.
Can't wait for it too.
So yeah.
Do we want to talk about maybe some of the Black Label titles? I am blown away by The Last God. I love fantasy comics.
Wow, it's good.
What Philip Kennedy Johnson is doing with that book, especially once it gets to the 3rd issue and it's telling parallel stories of 2 journeys for 30 years apart to go to the same place, and you kind of know what happens at the end of the first one, but you don't know why, and they're going to meet up and converge somehow. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it's solid. It's what's funny right now is it's probably one of the, in my shop at least, it's one of the top 5 selling DC books. And that was strictly by word of mouth.
Wow.
And because DC has really not been pushing this title, they've just kind of like going, oh, okay, well, this is something different. If you guys want to order it, that's fine. And now I'm selling, every issue comes out, I'm selling 30 to 35 copies, and that's impressive. I've been very impressed with it, and I think that people that are speculators, collectors, this is going to be something that's going to receive other media attention down the road. So go ahead and I'd go out, and even if it doesn't, it's a good book to get anyway, but I'd go out and get the first few issues of it put away somewhere.
We're getting a nice collection, and I think that will do really well. And I agree that it does feel like it's being written in something that can get picked up and transformed into other media. I think it will have a wonderful second life.
Mm-hmm. It's
because
it
Amazon
feels
got
like something for Amazon. It
like
has
the Lord of the
feel.
Rings coming out. That hits. They're going to need more material, more, and I think this is something that people that enjoy that will like.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. The Warner Brothers is going to be coming out with their streaming service. Maybe it might be something that they pick up.
So Josh, I think I got you on that book. What have you been thoughts so far?
I actually haven't had a chance to read it. I'm not a huge I don't like Lord of the Rings or anything like fantasy like that, but I did pick up the first couple issues at my shop the other day, and I was like, whoa, this does look pretty good. So that's pretty high up on my reading list. I'm definitely interested to check it out.
So you just got home, you're on your break, and you essentially have an enormous read pile. That's at least what I saw, right?
2 short boxes, yeah.
Wow, that sounds like my read pile. I'm so behind. I've got 2 short boxes sitting over here near my computer of books that I'm behind. Wow.
So does anyone else have any books that they're reading in Black Label, besides The Last God, that they think that are actually pretty good? I know, Perch, you said something out about Far Sector, right?
Yeah, I mean, so it sells well for me, and I think it's interesting. And maybe some more time needs to go by, so it's kind of coming in the middle. So I'm going to reserve the right to completely change my opinion here in a month or two. But it is, in many cases, as you see DC trying things with new heroes, and we're about to see in the next year a lot of kind of new faces with these costumes. I suspect, Far Sector is doing, I think, a better job of that than what we're going to see later. But
that's another title that I think is primed for other media.
Oh, absolutely.
It's got a feel. It's got a cinematic feel to it. That's the term I was looking for. Last God and they both have a cinematic feel to them that I think that when it does reach that other media, these books are going to shoot up in value. So.
And that's where I'm very interested to see. We'll tie the two together. What happens with Jeff Johns as he's off trying to build these other forms of media, because he is getting some credit for Aquaman's success and Wonder Woman's success and even the Joker's success, even though he had, from what I can hear, very little to do with it. He's still getting some credit for at least helping shepherd that along, which is positive. Those are the people you need to please in a giant corporation that just bought you. So if he's also intending, part of his duties is to curate some of these books and some of these new efforts into media. I think if Last God and Far Sector and even some of those. Here's where people will think I'm out of my mind, but even stuff like the Frank Miller Superman Year One, that's going to translate to those kinds of services, and he'll make money.
The Joker movie opened up doors for things like that, alternative takes. I could definitely see a Superman Year One movie based on Miller's work for sure.
They need a live action Red Sun, man.
We're getting an animated one, but
I think that
my son.
Oh, go ahead.
No, it's just Daniel here was telling me that he thinks that Far Sector and Last God are actually written in the same universe at different times.
Oh, that's interesting. Wow, that'd be an interesting tie.
That they're tied together, as far as being in the same universe, just at different points in time. And he thinks that they'll wrap up those series. When they wrap up, they'll connect.
So is Far Sector good?
Yeah, I think it's good.
Okay.
I think it's good. Yeah, it has great opportunity to really bomb the landing. I think. I think it's worth trying out. It's doing new things. People have taken shots at me in the past many times because I am always a fan of somebody trying something new, even if it doesn't work, because I appreciate reading something different where there's an honest effort to do something different, and this is something different. So it feels good.
It has a different. It just has a different. Yeah, you're right. It has a different appeal. I think people that may not be into capes, it's really going to kind of appeal to them.
Yeah, it's a sci-fi.
And I think that it's something that DC needs to do a little bit more of. Marvel does some of it, trying to pull in some of those customers in from Image and whatnot that are non-capes, pull those people in, to come to DC. So
I think it's always good. I mean, my argument always is do what you're going to do well. If it doesn't appeal to me, that's okay. Just do it well. So there's titles that Marvel does where they're absolutely not my book, but the creator is doing well for that genre. So great. Just keep trying that. It's a book that matches a segment, and that's all great. But anyway, I think there's a couple things over in Black Label. I'll be curious to see if Three Jokers actually does come out as they're saying, and then what is Jeff Johns' other project with Gary Frank that's coming?
Earth 1 Volume 3 for Batman.
That's right. And so I'm curious to see that.
Oh, and another one for Black Label. It's going to be coming out in 2021. I heard through the grapevine that House of Mystery and House of Secrets is going to be coming back.
Ew.
So.
Oh wow. Okay.
So yeah, 2021 that they're going to be launching those along with Black Label in about the next 18 to 24 months. So
before we end this, I do want to talk about one last thing with Black Label. I think when the label launched, it was with the Batwing controversy. DC Comics, Warner Media had just been acquired by AT&T. They did not enjoy the controversy. Apparently, they didn't even know it was coming. Dylan, do you think that that's had an effect on what Black Label is now compared to what it was originally intended to be?
Oh, certainly, yeah. I think the fact that they put it as this is our no holds barred book, you do whatever you want, it's out of continuity, and then the first issue, like, oh no, we need to go back. It's like the first thing that happens. They're like, maybe not so much. So yeah, that definitely had an effect on it. Like it
had such an impact that they actually went and edited the second book to actually put a blouse on Harley because they were going to have her topless.
Yeah, it's stupid. So yeah, that obviously had an effect, and it's not what they originally pitched it as, which was this is the Wild West over here. So if you want that, you can go get it. And then here we have main continuity stuff, but now they're like, we're going to reel it in a little bit, which is stupid because, like the dream of a lot of these guys in comics is like get on the news to mainstream people. And that's what it did. Like CNN and stuff was talking about Batwing. Like they're talking about, hey, you can see Batman's dick in a comic book. Like it got huge press. I saw so many people talking about like the most I'd seen someone talking about a comic book since like Miles Morales came out. Like it had been a long time since I'd seen so many mainstream people talking about a comic book. It was all over Batman's dick. And then AT&T was upset about that. And it's like, I don't really get that. You're getting so much press for this. Like this is a good, and you didn't really do anything to ruin the character to get in the first place. Cause a lot of the times they do stuff to ruin the character to get that press.
I had customers that I'd never even seen before, never been in the comic book store, come in and say, hey, you got that book with Batman's pecker in it? Yeah, I got it over here on the wall. And they're like, how much is that? And I said, well, it's pretty expensive because, it's pretty rare. Not really. But, it's gone up in value. And people are buying it for $50, $60, $70 a piece and never bought a comic book before. Just because
I think there's a lot of people that have this misconception, which makes sense that comic books are for children. So, you have somebody that's never been in the comic biz, they're an executive. They're like, what do you mean there's a penis in a comic? These are for children. You know what I mean?
God, think of the children.
Good wholesome
it's,
fun.
it's true, and that's why I mean the controversy went down, and I think you will see adult content show up in Black Label to some extent. The problem wasn't that there was a bat penis. The problem was that AT&T was surprised at a bat penis. Nobody told them that the bat penis was coming, and they would be seeing bat penis. And that's
Well, that penis one isn't coming. Let's clear that up.
Yes, exactly. The bat penis is
No one
YouTube
expects the bat
algorithms,
penis.
man. They know it.
Sorry, we went to the wrong place. I hurt Wes there.
Wayne Wiener.
Look, I think it's you don't surprise the person, you don't surprise the corporate master who just bought you, and this
No,
was a
you don't.
surprise they did not want.
What's so hilarious about it? I've got the retailer preview. You know, I've got that for my collection, and that was out for like 5 months, 4 or 5 months.
That long?
Yeah, with the wiener in it. It's got
Yeah,
the clear as day.
that book's
It was
worth like
out-
$500 now. The retailer copy. That's a gold bind, but holy cow, I didn't know it was out that long before like the final
Yeah,
copy.
it was out for 4 months. Nobody said a word.
Jeez.
And it's like, oh, come on, people. It was out for that long. Nobody cared enough to say anything about it. And now it's caused a big ruckus. You know, please. That's ridiculous.
So
Yeah,
I think
I've got a copy of it. So if anybody wants it, it's $800.
I think we've hit a good spot. You know, if Pele's trying to hawk us good for $800
That's
on the
right.
channel. We've talked about Batwing for at least 5 minutes now. Perch is trying to get me some type of community guideline strike. Thank you, buddy. I think we've covered DC Comics year in review pretty well now. Time for a little bit of closeout in a segment we like to call this week's comic book recommendations. Corbin, what do you recommend for the viewers this week?
Corbin?
Uh-oh, is he
He's
muted?
muted.
He's muted.
Dude.
Oh no. There we go.
Oh,
He's
he's
still
muted still.
Nope.
We can't hear you, bud.
Oh man.
Oh no.
Sign language.
Give us sign language.
All right, we're gonna give Corbin a little bit of time to work on some technical details.
We'll get back to you.
Dylan, what do you think people should be reading this week?
Well, X-Force is still really good, so check out X-Force. From what I hear, it's the only X book worth picking up, but it was the only one that I decided to pick up, and it's been pretty good. Batman Superman issue 5 was pretty good. We actually get a cool moment with Superman where he lets loose, which was nice to see because
Oh, damn it.
having Bendis on Superman, we don't really get to see Superman do that much. To see him actually do something in this book was nice. And what else came out? Last Night on Earth was a little disappointing, the ending, but it's
Yeah.
still like if you bought the first 2 issues, might as well, see how it ends, form your own opinion. And then Flash Forward, really good. New issue of that came out. So those are my recommendations.
All right, let's try this a second time. Corbin, are you there, buddy?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
There we go.
Oh,
Yeah.
we got it.
Hey.
You wait all show and then I get technical issues. No, okay. So no, Doomsday Clock 12, Batman Superman number 5 I liked. Batman Last Night on Earth 3 was pretty good. I read Batman 85. I'm sure everyone did. I wouldn't recommend it, but I mean, if you want to read The Last of Tom King, no, I'm not even gonna do that. Also, X-Force number 4 is pretty good. I've been kind of in and out of the X books, but I've really enjoyed that. So those will be my recommendations.
Bam, you and Dylan are on the same wavelength, my friend.
Oh, good. Look at us.
Mhm. The Batman and the Superman expert, both loving the Superman Batman
World's
title.
finest. That's what you call that.
Perch, what are you recommending for the viewers this week?
Well, I mean, you guys have stolen exactly what I was going to recommend. I think I'll try to get some new things. Doomsday Clock is the one to read this week. Reading one comic, read that comic. X-Force, I think, on Marvel's side, absolutely. I think we haven't mentioned it, but it fits with Black Label a little bit, and it's going to be completely. It's like it's being written to be converted into a movie. The Harleen series is a take on the character that's just going to morph right into a movie, and it's written that way. Probably a pretty strong one there. And so we mentioned some other. If you want to see just a glorious wreck in action, the J.J. Abrams Spider-Man is more than Batman. I mean, Tom King. I'll give it to there are parts of that landing that he tried to stick. It's still a very big mess. I'm with you. It's a very big mess, but But Spider-Man is a amazing train wreck of a comic. I mean, that one is
that Star Wars?
no, it's Spider-Man. Spider-Man.
No, but J.J. Abrams, it's his Star Wars, it's his Spider-Man. Which one was the bigger train wreck?
No, Spider-Man. I mean, absolutely.
Oh, wow.
I mean, Star Wars. Look, Star Wars is nostalgia. It's a train wreck of nostalgia. Spider-Man is amazing. You a gift. A gift of terribleness. You gotta. This is the Mystery Science 3000 comic of this year for sure. We will rip on forever.
Perfect. So Tevye Smoka is recommending Doomsday Clock, X-Force, and Shazam, as well as Batman, Superman, Doomsday Clock. Last night, X-Force. He's recommending a lot of stuff. Yule Carter is recommending Wonder Woman, Dead Earth. Dominic Powell is X-Force number 4, Fallen Angels number 3, Doomsday Clock 12, Shazam Fast Forward. Seems like we're all reading the same books here, people. All right, John, what do you recommend this week?
Doomsday Clock number 12 has to be my top. Obviously, I'll just pull that card. Teen Titans came out this week. I think it's on number 37. That's a really good book. I've really been enjoying this run. Flash Forward has been awesome. Batman and Superman, really good. Highly recommend that. I think that's about it for me. There is also, I'm a big omnibus collections guy, and the Geoff Johns Flash run is getting a re-release in the omnibus, and the first one came out. So I would definitely recommend picking that up.
Yeah, take along some cash with you because it's $100.
Yeah, I mean, I order mine online, so I get a pretty nice discount from the pull list. But yeah, it's pricey.
Yeah, our cost on that was $56. So yeah, I ordered 5 copies of it, sold them for $85 a piece, and all of them were gone.
Yeah, that's a classic Flash run. That's Wally West at his finest. Yeah. Definitely go for that. And there's a couple Grant Morrison's Green Lantern's getting collected releases too. I was a fan of that, so I'd recommend picking that up. But yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna pull the card, and Teen Titans is the only recommendation I have that basically everyone else didn't.
So Dane Barrett in the comments is recommending Excalibur, Marauders. What else you? All right, Mr. Jack Patz is recommending Blade Runner 2019 number 5. I love that series. Wasn't too happy with the time jump. What else we got? Whatever. Pele, what are you recommending?
Okay, I'm going to do a key issue alert on Teen Titans 37. It's the one coming out this week because it's going to be a key in the future. There's a lot of stuff going on with it. It's going to be important as far as that title down the road. Already seeing some of them on eBay, going for $8-10. So that's definitely a key to get. Go ahead and grab a copy of it, even if you aren't a Teen Titans fan, and read it. Maybe you'll pick it up and like the series. Let's see. Basketful of Head seems to be popular around the shop. I like John Constantine, the new Hellblazer Black Label title. It's good. I've been enjoying it. Of course, X-Force. If you're not reading X-Force, I don't know what the hell is wrong with you. It's the only X title that's left that I think is really outstanding. Flash Forward was going to Batman and Superman, but somebody already got that. So yeah, and Last God number 3. Pick up Last God. Go back and get the previous 2 issues. Get Last God number 3. Enjoy it. It's really good high fantasy. It's what a lot of the other titles that like that were supposed to be like. And it seems to be doing it better than they are. So
perfect. Also, Dane Barrett in the comments is recommending a hard recommend on all Bendis written Superman titles and Action Comics. Get your Superman, get your Event Leviathan, all courtesy of Dane Barrett. That is his big recommendation for 2019. Thank you very much, Dane. So my recommendations are I liked the first issue, but the second issue blew it out of the water. Joker Killer Smile number 2, and Andreas Martino takes the art to another level. I originally thought it was just a take on the Rorschach psychologist story from Watchmen, but he's really expanded on it, made it a lot more interesting this week.
Wow.
Mine was blown. Loved it.
I read the first one. I thought it was milquetoast. I was death by it.
Killer Smile's pretty good. My only problem is he's hurt by the page count because he's having to make the pace go at like breakneck speeds.
Yeah.
But it is pretty good.
Yeah, the second issue is miles better than the first one. I thought the first one was okay, but the second one is really good, especially the art.
To pick it up.
Last God number 3, X-Force number 4 is the best Dawn of X comic so far. It's better than all the X-Men, the other X-Force. That one's amazing. Daredevil 15. Daredevil kind of went on a little bit of a lull, but they're doing a really cool storyline with Kingpin trying to fit in with high society, and they're starting to push him a little too far. They just threw him out of a window of a building. So Daredevil 15 was excellent. And I am going on a remender bender for the holidays. I've downloaded everything I could off of Comixology Unlimited, and I'm reading Uncanny X-Force by Rick Remender. Phenomenal. It is amazing. He should be one of the guys writing Dawn of X because his stuff fits in style-wise right with House of X and Powers of 10, in my opinion.
Yeah, his X-Force run's amazing.
Yeah, so Uncanny X-Force, if you haven't read it and you got Comixology Unlimited, go ahead and read those first 3 volumes. They're amazing. So I guess that just about wraps it up. It's been a great year. I don't think anybody but maybe Pele is going to be on next week's Marvel panel. So I just wanted to say, Perch, thank you so much for being with us here today. You've contributed a ton to the channel. I always love having you on. You have great, smart takes on everything. You're very well measured. You're very well spoken. Thank you so much for being on the channel, for being here on the DC Comics Year in Review. Where can people follow you, my friend?
Wow, you're too nice. Thank you very much. I love having these conversations with people. It's great. You run a great channel, great show. So I'm on Twitter, Comic Perch. I'm on YouTube at Comic Perch, and I have terrible audio. So I recommend you listen to my terrible audio.
It's funny you mentioned audio. I remember I sent a Superman video I did to Dylan at the Real Comic Book Gamer. I said, hey, I know you like Superman. Tell me what you think. And he came back and he goes, it's pretty good, but your audio's jacked up. I can tell when you're doing this and this. And he completely changed the audio quality on my channel. Since he gave me that comment, I have not had bad audio. So thank you very much, Dylan. Also, thank you for coming on and talking about Star Wars and Superman. I really enjoyed collaborating with you. I love all the stuff you're doing with the Fallen Order. I think you're kind of done with the playthrough on that. But can't wait for your Superman Redux, and as well as your Heroes of Crisis was a great video as well. Thank you so much for being on here, and where can people follow you, my friend?
No problem, man. Thanks for having me on. It's been fun. But yeah, you can follow me at the _RCBG on Twitter and Twitch, and then Real Comic Gamer on YouTube. And my Bendis video should be out sometime within the next 2 weeks. Script is all done, everything. It's mainly just editing now. So I just got to get all that done, and then that'll be out. And it's going to be similar-ish to my Heroes in Crisis video in that style. So I'm excited to get that one out there and never read a Bendis book again.
Absolutely. That's the way to go. You need to cut Bendis out of your life.
Yeah.
Yep. It's like cholesterol. You don't need it.
He's the trans fat of DC. So
Yeah, he is.
So next up is Josh. I just want to say thank you so much. We did that wonderful Rebirth conversation that kind of spilled over in Dark Knight's Metal. We did a great segment on Nightwing that I think people really appreciated. I know people have personally messaged me and said, those conversations have reignited my fire, my appreciation for the characters and the characters that I want. And I want to talk to you about them as well. I have multiple people coming to me and saying, hey, I want to do something like those where I can talk about my favorite character. And it's something I am going to do in 2020. I know you want to contribute more to the channel. We're going to have more conversations like that. Thank you so much. And can people even follow you on social media?
Thank you for giving me the voice. This is really reigniting my passion for comics. I've read a ton of comics since I came home for break, and I just keep wanting to read more. And I didn't want to read before, but you guys have really reignited my passion for DC and for reading. I don't use social media. I'm not a big social media guy. I am thinking about turning my current YouTube channel over into a comic channel. I'd have to change the name and stuff on it though, so I have to kind of like figure out how to do that. But you've definitely like got that bug in my ear of like, man, I want to do comic book reviews and stuff and kind of talk about comics the way that you guys do. But I think we're going to do a video on Superman, right? At some point soon. Yeah, I'm definitely excited for that. Superman holds a special place to my heart, which is one of the reasons why I love Doomsday Clock so much this week. But yeah, I mean, thank you so much for having me on the channel. Glad to be a part of it.
Awesome. And if you do want to talk to Josh, you can't find him on social media, but where you can find him is in our Discord server. There's a link. There's an invitation in the description of the video. If you want to come talk to Josh, talk to Corbin. I think Perch is there. The real Actually, everybody here is there. We even got all the comics aficionados are basically there. You want to talk to us about comics, movies. You want to talk about the Rise of Skywalker. That's the place to do it. So thank you very much for that. So Corbin, you are my resident Batman expert. I'm hoping to do a final City of Bane wrap up with you this weekend, to produce next week. And I really appreciate everything that you bring to the channel. I know you provide a lot of content for other podcasts. I think you're going to do some stuff with the channel moving forward where you're maybe a bigger voice and maybe a star of some things. And I just want to say I really appreciate everything that you've done for me. Love your friendship. And where can people find you, my friend?
Wow. Well, first, thank you, Wes. That's a lot, and it means a lot, and I appreciate it and having me on. You can find me at Comic Book Barbarian on Twitter. Soon to be on YouTube as well, trying to get the audio and everything squared away first. But aside from that, yeah, that's where all my stuff is. Really just kind of looking at love and purchase stuff, and everyone you guys on social media has been fun. So that's where you can find me in future work.
All right. There we go. We're good. Finally, Pele, thank you so much. I remember about 11 months ago, maybe it's 10 months ago, I messaged Pele. I was like, hey, I've got this comic channel called Comics Aficionados. We'd like to have a retailer on the channel. I know you talk about comics. Would you please join us? And he said, how long is the stream? Because I was on one for 5 hours once. I don't want to do that. I said, we're only doing 3. He said, I'll be there. And you've basically been on every show since. So I want to thank you so much. You're big time contributor. You are a unique voice on the channel. And, we don't always see eye to eye, but I respect everything that you bring. And I respect everything, all your contribution and the way that you've helped me grow over the years. So I very much appreciate it, my friend. Where can people follow you?
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. If everybody agreed, that'd be boring. It's really boring. But you can find me at @just_Pele on just about every social media platform. Twitter tends to get a little bit political. Instagram, I mostly show a lot of new acquisitions and stuff like that from the personal collection, maybe some for the store too. And we talk about comics there. If you have any questions or anything on Twitter regarding grading or any hot collectibles or CGC submissions or anything like that, just hit me up on Twitter and I'll help you any way I can.
Well, that will conclude the second to last Comics Aficionados in 2019. Next week is the Marvel Comics wrap up. I believe we got Doc, we got Second Street Marvel coming to the show, Ash on Comics, we got Chase from Gateway into Comics. So we have a great panel. I think Pele's even going to sneak onto the panel on that one. He's the only guy that's going to do both shows. Mm-hmm. And, definitely be right here on Saturday in Salamat Post, and I'm out.